Hi, my name is Ryan Whelan. I'm a pastor at New Crossing Church in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, and this is a verse by verse video commentary on the book of Ruth. It's meant to accompany our series in the book of Ruth, so you can check that out as well. But for now, that's enough chit chat. Let's grab our Bibles and jump right in. We are jumping right in. And the first thing that we see is that it is in the days when the judges ruled. And during the time of the judges was extremely dangerous. It was chaotic and people were cruel. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. We see that in Judges 21-25 and other places. And it was just a time period of moral and spiritual instability in Israel. Very dangerous time to be alive. Ruth shines through as a story of faithfulness. We see during this time, there was famine in Bethlehem. Now, this is sort of interesting, ironic almost, because Bethlehem, Beit Lechem, it means house of bread. So there's a famine in the house of bread, which is in Judah. And then family needs to go from Judah to Moab. And the family, he, his wife, and his two sons go to Moab from Judah, from Bethlehem. Let's see where that is by looking at this map. If we look at this map here, we see Jerusalem and Bethlehem right there. Those are in Judah, where the famine is. And if they were to cross over the Dead Sea into Moab, that would be about 40 to 60 miles, a little bit of a journey, but really not that far. And what's interesting, at least I think it is, we have a 3D map here of Bethlehem right here. And maybe we'll do it in yellow so you can see a little better. Bethlehem right there and Moab right here. Now you could actually see straight across the Dead Sea, and you could see the mountains of Moab from Bethlehem. Pretty cool. All right, let's get back to the text. Next, we see the name of the man and his family. So the names are Elimelech, Naomi, Mahlon, and Chilion. And Elimelech means my God is king. This is important because it sets us up in the book of Ruth to focus on this theme that God is sovereign. He's the king over all that's happening. And that's a really important theme in the book of Ruth. Then we see Naomi. Her name means pleasant and lovely. And later on in our story in the book of Ruth, we're going to see that Naomi uses her name to sort of question God and says her name shouldn't be pleasant or lovely, as her name suggests, but it should be Mara, which means bitter. And then we see the names of the two sons, which I think is the most interesting part of our text today, because Mahlon or Machlon means weak or sickly, and then Chilion means wasting away or frail. And this sort of indicates that they might not be in the best scenario. And so what happens to this family? Well, they were Ephrathites from Bethlehem and Judah, and they went to the country of Moab, like we saw, and they remained there. So they're not just sojourners like they were originally planning to be. So here we see the word sojourn, meaning temporary resident, but they went there and remained there. And so then what happened? Well, we see that Elimelech, the husband, died. And then after Elimelech died, she was left with her two sons, and those two sons, they actually ended up marrying. And so the two sons took Moabite wives, meaning wives from the area of Moab, and their names were Orpah and Ruth. Now, Orpah means neck or back of the neck, and it could sort of indicate that she's stiff-necked. It's uncertain about that. And Ruth could be friend or companion. The themes of Ruth, loyalty, companionship, refreshment, that all fits, but it's hard to say because there are Moabite names. They're not necessarily Hebrew names. So maybe their names have significance. We're not 100% sure. What's really interesting here is that we know they didn't sojourn. Now, remember, they didn't sojourn. They remained there. And how long? About 10 years. Now, culturally, in the ancient Near East, this is a marker of infertility. After 10 years, the wives and the sons, that family doesn't have any children. That indicates that the family line is effectively dead or in danger. And so Mahlon and Chilion died then. So this is a whole terrible scenario. Now you have Elimelech who died, And you have Mahlon and Chilion who died. And now Naomi is left with her two daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. So then what happened? Well, we see that she, meaning Naomi, arose. And arose is here because she's arising to return with her daughters-in-law to Moab, from Moab, because she heard that in the fields of Moab, while she was there, the Lord had visited and given them food. So this is an important type of visit. It's pakad, and it's not a usual visitation. It means to intervene, to attend for, to care for. It's an act of covenant faith. It's an act of covenant, and it's the first explicit appearance of Yahweh in Ruth. He reverses the famine. He shows up in verse 6. And because he shows up, Naomi sets out from the place where she was at with her daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to return to the land of Judah. Now, all three began their journey together. Again, remember, this is in the time of the judges, so it's a super dangerous journey, and they began their journey together. They're all showing loyalty to one another and love for one another. So what we're going to see in the next few verses isn't a knock on Orpah and how loyal she is, but just really an exaggeration or really intense focus on how amazing it is what Ruth is doing. So Naomi heads back to Judah. And Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, hey, you don't need to follow me. Like, go, each of you return, go home. Like, listen, the reality is you've been kind to me and I want to bless you. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt kindly with the dead and with me. She's saying, listen, I love you and I want the best for you. Please go back to where it's safe. If you come over into Judah, you might be in danger. You know, you're a Moabite woman, and Moabites and the Israelites have a long history of battling and wars and not treating each other right. So Moabite women were actually kind of looked down on. It was legal in the law of God to marry them, but there were certain restrictions on it. And generally speaking, there was some racism going on there. And so Naomi blesses them. She says, you should go back out to your family where it's safe. Now, this is the first time we see a very important word in the Bible and in Ruth as chesed. It shows up as kindly here. And this is a covenant love. This is a love based on a covenant and a commitment to a person. So God has chesed to us. And here we see that she's saying, hey, may the Lord show chesed to you, a covenant type of love, because you have dealt with me and the dead well. And now we're going to see sort of this back and forth between Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth about what to do next. So first, Naomi says, the Lord grant that you may find rest, and each of you into the house of their own husband. She kissed them. They lifted up their voices and they wept. And so this shows a lot of strong, deep family bonding, a lot of loyalty and love in this family. And in verse 10, they said to her, no, we will return. We're going to go back with you. And then Naomi's like, I don't know if that's such a good idea, because if you are, have I yet sons in my womb? Meaning, hey, are you really going to wait for me and then have the possibility of never getting married? You know, I don't have any husbands that you can marry. I don't know who you're going to marry. I don't know how you're going to be safe. I don't know how you're going to be provided for. This doesn't seem like a good idea. And she says again, turn back. Go on your way. I'm too old to have a husband. And if I even have hope, even if I should have a husband this night, are you really going to wait that long? Of course not. And so essentially what happens is then Orpah decides, you know what? Orpah kissed the mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. So Ruth decides to stay with Naomi, and Orpah decides to leave. Now, this is an emotional peak because there's a big choice being made here. Orpah is leaving, Ruth is staying, and that means Ruth and Orpah are being split, which is probably pretty sad after the decade at least that they've spent together, being infertile together, going through the trauma they went through together. There's got to be a very, very strong bond here. It's a farewell kiss, a very kind gesture, a good parting. Orpah chooses the reasonable and unexpected path. It's not a bad thing, but Ruth clung to her. And this idea of clinging is a sort of covenant display of love. It's the same word used in Genesis 2:24. A man shall cling to his wife. And that's the type of clinging that Ruth is doing to Naomi. And Ruth displays this chesed to Naomi even before she speaks her pledge that we're going to see in verses 16 and 17 next time. All right. See you later. All right. I hope that blessed you and that you're getting excited about the book of Ruth. If you want to check out how to do these deep studies on your own, I have a tutorial on Blue Letter Bible that you can check out right here. Otherwise, see you next time. Bye-bye.